We're back!
Do we have to start it that way?
No.
I don't want to say we're back.
Okay, what do you want to say?
I don't know.
We're back! For those of you who don't remember us, or who are new to our channel, let's start at the beginning. Back in 2015, we left our jobs in San Francisco and bought a small old sailboat, sight unseen. Well,
so we've been on board for about 3 minutes now. Just got the quick and dirty tour. We got a lot of spiders. I think that's a cocoon.
This old gal needed a bit.
Oh, gross.
Old bilge pump.
The old bilge pump.
We quickly got into the groove of cruising and spent a season voyaging across the entire Eastern Caribbean. I can't believe we have this all to ourselves.
Yeah, and endless more. I was laying in bed trying to get some sleep after this long overnight sail, and I heard fish on. Oh yeah!
Oh, it's a marlin! After a season, we felt as though we had taken our boat paradox as far as we were comfortable. But we, and I especially, just couldn't bear to go back to work. So with tears in our eyes,
So last night on the boat.
Yeah.
we sold our old gal and set off on an adventure across Europe in a very different mode of transportation. It was a Ural motorcycle with a sidecar. Most of you thought we were a little crazy. And you weren't wrong. I would not say that night one is going well, but it was pretty incredible. One of the key things we learned on this trip was that we actually prefer to travel by sailboat. So we hitched a ride home with our friends Andrew and Arwen, the skipper and mate of sailing yacht Tillyman. Cheers.
What a day.
What a day. And just like that, we were back. It was time to go home. It was time to go back to work. And our videos and travels were temporarily suspended. So what have we been up to since then? Well, we had a baby. We bought a boat. And we're hoping to get back out there again. And that's where we are today, with Will about to show me our new sailboat that I have yet to see in person. Very exciting. We just arrived to St. Petersburg from Chicago. And I'm gonna get to see the boat for the first time, which is crazy that we have now bought our second boat that I have never seen before buying. Will assures me that I'm gonna like it, so.
I don't know that I gave that guarantee. I just did what you told me to do and went and bought this boat.
I basically conjured this boat into being. I had a checklist of the things that I wanted. This boat fit them, so I'd better like it because it's kind of my fault that we bought it.
Yeah, so Kat came with a pretty challenging set of criteria for the next boat. She wanted center cockpit, a swim step, 3 cabins. I'd say those are the things that she cared about the most. I cared about top build quality, a skeg hung rudder ideally, a cutter rig, just generally a beefy offshore boat. And it's gotta be within our budget. All of those criteria, very, very difficult to find. There's really only, once you start putting all those things together, there's only a handful of models that meet that criteria, period. Even less within our budget, even less, on the East Coast, which is our primary area of interest. And the list gets smaller and smaller as you start looking at the condition of these boats. There was an unveils Super Maremou in Fort Lauderdale that was seemingly in very good shape and had been very actively maintained by a long-distance cruiser that was on the very top end of our budget, and probably no wiggle room in the price, or nothing significant. So it's also a very, very complex boat. It's a very large boat at 53 feet. It has every possible electrical system that you could bolt on to a cruising boat. So probably a budget killer for us, but it's a compelling boat. There's also, on kind of the other end of the spectrum, there's a Vauquier Amphitrite 43-foot ketch from 1987 or something in Fort Lauderdale that I looked at with very low expectations, but was super pleasantly surprised by what I saw. Not the prettiest boat around, but really cool, funky layout. Felt like a French sea gypsy anarchist boat, but it seemed well built, well laid out, and this one had been very, very well maintained, and the price was very attractive when thinking about our overall budget and what it would take to get this thing going. So that was kind of compelling, even though there are a lot of things that, definitely doesn't get our swim step that Kat wanted, but it met a lot of the other criteria. Another boat that really was compelling was an Oyster 485, and generally Oyster's way outside the budget. This one had been priced at $225, which is very low for a 1997 or 8 Oyster, maybe 99. But the story behind it was that the owner had parked it in Georgia 3 years ago, walked off the boat, and left it sitting in this boatyard and hadn't returned. So it had been sitting for a long time, like even the sails were still bent on. It's clearly not been well prepped for long-term storage, and consequently the owner just really wanted to get rid of it. The broker seemed to be pretty upfront about this, and knew that the owner would take 180, and I'm guessing would have been pressed down further after a thorough survey. But everything about this Oyster, meets the criteria. It's very heavily, very well built, cutter, swim step, center cockpit, gorgeous 3-cabin interior. Some of the big detractors were they've got glued on teak decks, so at least you don't have screw holes, but these were just peeling up in places, so that would have been a big project, but at least it wasn't going to cause structural damage. So I wasn't too scared off by that, but it was just the gamble of, do we attempt to see like what systems on this boat still even work? Like, is the engine just a corroded mess? It looked all right on the outside, but what's it like in the inside? Things like the water maker, the generator, obviously the batteries are toast, and just all the pumps and the various other pieces of equipment that make up a cruising boat. What's the state of these going to be after sitting on the hard in a swampy area for 3 years? And if we took the gamble and came out on the right side of it, we would have had a really, really awesome boat for a pretty reasonable amount of money. But I think the odds were just not favorable enough of that working out, so we decided to kind of put that one aside for the time being, which then left the one other boat that really stood out from the East Coast boat tour, which was this 1995 Contest 46. So I didn't know anything about contests. You probably don't know anything about contests. doesn't seem like anybody who speaks English in America knows anything about contests. But from what I can gather, they're a Dutch-built boat, very well constructed, very heavily constructed, and well regarded in Europe. And it checks all the boxes. Center cockpit, 3 cabins, swim step, cutter, massive hardware, like some of the thickest wire rigging I've seen on any cruising boat in this class. So just kind of confidence inspiring. The price was on the high end of our budget, but the broker made it pretty clear that the owner is reasonable and was ready to move on. Just come with an offer.
So Will came home, we sat down and we compared the pros and the cons of all 4 boats. Then we each wrote on a secret piece of paper the one that we wanted and had a big reveal, and it turns out that we were both in favor of the contest. So we bought it.
All right, I'm gonna film Kat walking up to the boat and seeing it for the first time. So she's only seen it in pictures up to now.
A little nervous. Should have tied my shoes better. What do you think, Maddie? Well, I think it's gonna be great. It's both bigger and smaller than I was imagining. Like all of the being up on deck feels bigger, seeing it in the water feels bigger. Being down below, it feels smaller. It's nice. It's hard when you've only seen pictures, you know, to sort of get a sense for what it's going to feel like. This is really nice.
Don't touch.
Oh.
It's forever going to be the game to not turn the white leather gross.
Maddie, this is going to be your room. This is going to be so perfect. This is going to be your room, baby. And it feels like because there's hallways, like there's some areas that feel really narrow, which I don't feel like our old boat felt narrow because there was never a hallway.
Yeah.
You can never stand in a hallway. It's nicer inside than I was expecting, actually. I feel a little overwhelmed right now. I think it's pretty easy to be the champion of buying something that you haven't seen, because in your mind it can just be sort of the best of everything. So it's
It's not the best of everything.
It's a little overwhelming being here right now and being like, oh, like this is our boat, this is real, we're gonna be doing it. But I'm excited to be here for the next 5 weeks and get to know her. Maddie's impressed.
Suitable.
Yeah, I'm feeling a lot of things. I hate that picture.
Yep.
In the next episode, we take on the realities of living on a project boat in the marina as we slowly make a dent in a survey with over 70 action items.
I'm trying to learn how Zintex S1 propane fume detector works, so I can figure out why this one doesn't work, so we don't blow the boat up.